Okay, so first we had Now You See Me, Now You Don't, otherwise known as Now You See Me Free. And now we have Ready or Not, Here I Come. So yeah, those are some inventive titles. Look, I just got done seeing this. Didn't have high hopes. I've got to say that. I've got to be honest. I really didn't think this movie was gonna be that good based on the trailers, but I was wrong. I actually enjoyed it more than I thought that I would. So the first movie was lightning in a bottle. It did what horror comedies fail to do so often, which is really balance that sense of humor with some serious stakes, because if it's all campy, it just goes too much into comedy, and then if there's too much horror, it does the same thing there, and it just balanced it perfectly. It had heart, it had serious moments of tension, and it did do it better than it did here, but it still did it pretty well in this movie as well. And next week I'll have my review up for They Will Kill You, which is basically a movie copying Ready or Not by the looks of it. But it still looks like fun, so it's got that same comedy, horror sort of tone to it by the looks of it. Anyway, this was helmed by Radio Silence, the team that brought us the first movie. Did the recent Scream movies, and I wasn't a fan of what they did with Scream. I feel like they're not good when it comes to movies that are more serious in tone. Obviously, Scream still has its campy meta moments, but still, overall as a franchise, it's not a comedy horror. And I feel like Radio Silence, it shines when they're not trying to do too serious. Like Abigail, I enjoyed that. I'm excited for what they do with The Mummy 4. But when it came to this movie, I had my doubts because of it reminded me so much of the situation with The Black Phone, which was such a well-crafted, self-contained story that did not need to be built upon. But I went in with really high hopes because the first one was so good, and I got my hopes completely crushed. And I thought the first one of this was so good, but yeah, I should go in with my expectations a bit lower this time, and maybe that's why I did enjoy it. Because look, it's not amazing. It's a rehash of everything that came before, but it's less impactful this time around because we've seen it all before. So obviously there's only so much they can do at this point to shock us in that regard, unless they make it a whole different setting and type of movie. It's a retread of what we enjoyed about the first one, minus a few things in the first one. I felt like it lacked that heart, that human element, but the first one did so well between Samara Weaving's character and her husband. Here, I know they're trying to do that with the sister dynamic. So the plot is this one takes off exactly where the first one ends, right up to Samara Weaving's character asking for a cigarette, and then she goes to the hospital, gets kidnapped by the evil Satanist people who kidnap her sister as well, who she's been estranged from her sister for 7 years. And yeah, they obviously have to overcome their differences while they're being hunted. So the sister is played by fellow Scream queen Kathryn Newton, who is a very talented actress in her own right. Okay, so I really wanted to like Kathryn Newton's character and the whole sister bond, and I did warm up to her later on in the movie. But at first, it was a little hard to like her. A lot hard to like her. Firstly, the reason for their estrangement, no spoilers, but the reason is so stupid and so selfish on her character's part to hold that against her sister. And secondly, her sister, Samara Weaving's character, is in the hospital and her sister is taunting her about being a gold digger, a failure at life. Like, she calls her sister a failure at life while she's in the hospital grieving her dead Satanist husband who tried to kill her. And her sister's actually making fun of the fact that her husband's dead at one stage. So even though she redeems herself later, she puts her life on the line for her sister. So yeah, she redeems herself, but it's a little too late for me to really like her. But she's an entertaining character, even if she's not a likable one. And can we just talk for a second about the fact that Satanists really seem to like hide and seek? I mean, isn't there another game they can turn evil and make a way to kill people with? that would have been a way for them to do the same concept but do something fresh within the concept. I mean, in the first movie, you see a whole bunch of different games. I don't know if they're all evil games, but still, it reminds me of in that Annabelle movie, I forget what one it is, but there's like that evil board game where you stick your hands in the holes. You could have done a lot with the whole evil game premise is all that I'm saying. And so this whole high table thing is basically these powerful families that make up this John Wick style high table, but instead of being assassins, they're Satanists. Well, they're sort of Satanists / assassins in this movie, I guess. So Samara Weaving and her iconic scream are amazing in this, as always. She's a really good actress. I feel like the world building in this was a little too convoluted. So we have Elijah Wood, who did a really good job apart from Catherine Newton and Samara Weaving. He was definitely the standout for me. He played the lawyer and he was very much in the position of telling the audience exposition because there's all this new world building and law and rules, and it was a bit convoluted, unnecessarily convoluted, but still you could keep up. And I don't like to typecast people in previous roles that they've done, but some roles are just so iconic that it's hard not to. Like Daniel Radcliffe, let's be honest, the first thing that you think of when you see him is Harry Potter. I know he played a villain in a movie. I can't even remember what it was. I think it was one of the Now You See Me in 2, I think. And yeah, he just wasn't really selling it for me. But Elijah Wood, when I saw him, I didn't once think of Frodo. He owned the role. He was so unsettling and creepy. I would have liked to see more of him, though he is fairly predominantly featured in this, but still, I feel like he was the only one that was genuinely unsettling. So Sarah Michelle Gellar, she has a twin brother in this. I thought they'd be portrayed as really cartoonish and campy, but they were actually playing it fairly serious. Still, they just weren't selling it. I hate to say this because I'm such a big fan of Buffy, and I think Sarah Michelle Gellar was a phenomenal actress in that show. But here it feels like she's taken a step backwards. Maybe she's a little rusty. She hasn't, well, she has though. She has had a bit of a career revival of late. So I don't know. It just felt like she was really stiff and wooden in every line delivery. So there's an actor, Nestor Carbonell, who had a pretty small role, but he's in a show I really like, Bates Motel, and he's a great actor. So it would have been cool to see more of him. The third act in this was definitely the highlight for me. No spoilers, but it was definitely a good payoff. And the soundtrack was really fun. But on to the negatives, it just felt emotionally hollow. That relationship that was meant to be the heart and core of the movie between her and her sister. Look, it was okay, it did the job, but it just wasn't really doing anything. But still, the two actresses play off each other well in terms of their personality. The set pieces in the first movie, the backdrop of the manor was just so beautiful and had so much ambiance. And technically it's a manor here as well, but it just felt different. The first did everything a lot better. Samara Weaving was better on her own. The sister felt unnecessary. But still, I'm not saying this is a bad movie. It's definitely worth seeing in the cinema if you enjoyed the first one. You're going to have a good time in this, but it's not going to be a movie you're going to really seek to rewatch, or at least it's not in my case. The first movie stood out. Like I said, it was lightning in a bottle. This one was enjoyable, but fairly forgettable. So I would give it a 7 out of 10. Let me know what you guys thought of it down below. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all of that YouTube stuff, and I'll see you in the next video.